Hi guys, today is April 16th, 2020 and futures are up despite housing starts coming in at with the plunge of 22.3% and jobless claims came in with 5.24 million claims. So not good numbers, but in general, people are expecting the economy to restart very soon. So President Trump talked about it yesterday, and people are very excited about that. So there is a fear of missing out, and also Fed is buying bonds, inducing this rally, because buying bonds make bonds pay less dividend or less yield. I'm sorry, and people are moving money into stocks. So let's jump to S&P 500, stock symbol SPY, and let's see the chart of S&P 500. It's not a good chart, but in general, it's going higher. I mean, there is a spring, as you see here. I mean, people are still buying, and I would be cautious because there is a disconnect in my mind between this run on Wall Street and the reality that people is going to face in earnings. But still, people are afraid to miss out and buying stocks. So let's jump to corporate news. Moderna. Okay, so Moderna said yesterday that they're in collaboration with Ginkgo Bioworks to optimize processes to manufacture their vaccine. And Ross Capital raised their price target to 41, and Oppenheimer raised their price target to 43. I think in general Moderna is going to go to $40 or $40+. But it's a little steep to me to buy it, but I wouldn't sell it. So because buying it carries a lot more risk at this point. Okay, so but in general, I think it still will go higher. Vir. Okay, so Vir had some news yesterday because they actually said that they see positive signs in phase 2 hepatitis B trials. So everybody forgotten about that Vir also have other things they're working on besides their COVID-19 vaccines. And I told you that under $30 or close to $30 is a pretty good buy in my opinion. Okay, INO. Inovio Pharmaceuticals. So Inovio said that reported that the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations granted 6.9 million funding to company to work on their phase 1/2 trials in South Korea. So in general, I think Inovio is a pretty good buy in this area. Low sevens is, I think, is an excellent buy. So Vanda, VNDA. That company reported that they collaborated with the University of Washington to study genetic variations in COVID-19. So this stock is higher, but I will be careful with this one. It could be a good trade, a day trade candidate or a swing trade candidate, but I would be very careful with this stock. Arcus. Okay, Arcus Biosciences. It was reported by Bloomberg that Arcus is in talks with Gilead and Gilead is trying to take stake in this company. So this stock is higher a lot pre-market, and I wouldn't jump in at this point. I would let it come down a little bit if you want to jump, if you want to buy the stock. And because I think it may come down actually, because the common rule is buy the rumor, sell the news. So we'll see what happens, but I'm watching it but not touching it. Okay, URGN, UroGen Pharma. Actually, several people asked me about this on my Patreon account and in YouTube, and that's a pretty good company. I took a look at this, and it's a very promising company, and they reported that they received FDA expedited approval for their Gelmato treatment for the patients with low-grade upper tract urothelial cancer. So that's an interesting company to watch, and I think in around low 20s, that could be a good buy, maybe an interesting buy in my opinion. So next company is, let's move off to from the pharmaceuticals, and BBBY. Okay, Bed Bath & Beyond. I was actually surprised by this report because I was expecting a horrible report from BBBY, but it wasn't so. I mean, that was not so bad report. They actually reported that they had better than expected results in Q4, and they sold One King Lane, their decor business, and Raymond James maintained a strong buy on BBBY. But cut its price target to $9. It's actually an interesting pickup, could be. I mean, it's opening at $5.19, $5.20. I would not buy the open, let it come down a little bit, but it could be an interesting buy because I wasn't expecting Bed Bath & Beyond to be doing so well, actually. Okay, so next company is Lakeland Industries, stock symbol LAKE. It's a protective gear company, and they reported pretty good numbers and beat by earnings, beat by revenue, but they were cautious with their outlook on the conference call. That's why the stock is down pre-market. But I think it's if it goes too low, I think it's a pretty good buy on this sell-off in case it does sell off. Tesla, okay. So Tesla reported that interesting thing that if you remember the tweet by Musk that company will be taken private, and there was a lawsuit about that by I think by short sellers, and the judge actually says that Musk has to face the lawsuit. So Tesla shares are lower in general. I like Tesla a lot, and I think under $700 it's a pretty good buy. So maybe it's going to be an opportunity to jump into the stock. Okay, so Morgan Stanley reported numbers and posted $1 per share below 114 consensus estimate, but showed strong equities and fixed assets trading. I think I actually like Morgan Stanley, and in general I like the banks, especially Bank of America, and I like Wells Fargo because it's very low in my opinion. But in general, Morgan Stanley is a pretty good buy in mid-30s. It's a great pickup. Speaking of banks, Bank of New York Mellon. Bank of New York Mellon reported pretty good numbers, beat the estimates by 17 cents. Revenue top estimates, market volatility boosted its revenue fees. So that's a pretty good stock in general, in my opinion. It's paying a really good dividend. And if it comes down a little bit, like low 30s, I would be interested to buy the stock. Stock symbol BK. Okay, Square. Okay, Square was downgraded by Raymond James to underperform because Raymond James sees the disconnect between the stock performance and fundamentals. In general, Square, I agree with Raymond James. It's a little bit too high for me, but I think it could be a good pickup on the sell-off. Low 50s, I think, is a pretty good price for Square, in my opinion. But there are a lot of stocks there that in the same boat that there's a big disconnect between their price performance and market stock performance and their fundamentals. Like I said, I would be very careful in general buying stocks in this environment. ABT, Abbott Labs, reported 7 cents above estimates, revenue beat. Pretty good numbers, but it was priced in the stock, in my opinion, and it's trading a little bit high to me. And as you know, Abbott Labs came out with the 10 or 15 minute tests for COVID-19, and it's doing pretty well. But in general, I would like it to come down to buy it. Okay, so BLK as well reported. BlackRock, that's probably the biggest hedge fund on earth, BLK, and they reported not bad numbers, but $5.15 compared to $6.61 last year. They saw the inflow of money. I think they saw like 35 billion in inflow in March, but most of this money they're putting in cash, and they're doing discussions with clients because a lot of funds and companies are afraid to put money into the market. So But in general, I like BlackRock, and it's actually moving along with the market, and I think I would be a buyer. They pay a pretty good dividend, and on a sell-off, it could be a really good buy. And another last company that I give you is Freeport-McMoRan. That company was upgraded this morning to overweight by Barclays with a price target of 10. That's materials company, and that's not a bad pickup in my opinion. Could be because they're pretty low, I think, and could be picked up actually. A lot of Carl Icahn was buying this stock before, and I think could be an interesting buy in this area. Okay, so that's it, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, click the like button, write me some comments, and I'll see you tomorrow.